The rain fell softly that evening, tapping against the glass walls of the rooftop restaurant where candles flickered over white linens. Claire sat across from Daniel, her longtime boyfriend, whose nervous hands fidgeted with the small velvet box in his pocket. Everyone around them seemed to know what was coming. Her friends, her parents, even the waiters who exchanged knowing glances. Daniel cleared his throat, eyes glistening with hope. "Claire," he began, voice trembling. "These past 6 years have been the best of my life. Will you marry me?" The restaurant went silent. Claire's chest tightened. For a heartbeat, she saw the life laid out before her, steady, predictable, safe. Then another face flickered in her mind, the stranger from her art class. The one who had looked at her paintings as if he saw her soul, not her technique. The one who made her question what love really meant. Daniel opened the box. The ring sparkled. Claire's hand trembled, but not with excitement. She smiled faintly, leaned forward, and whispered, "I'm sorry, Daniel." Gasps rippled across the room. "I can't," she said softly. And then, almost in the same breath, her phone buzzed, a message lighting up the screen. It was from him. "I'm outside." Her heartbeat quickened. She stood up, the world blurring around her. And for the first time in years, she followed her heart instead of expectations. Claire stepped into the rain-soaked street, the city lights blurring through her tears. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she searched for him. Then she saw him, Elias, standing by his motorcycle, drenched, waiting. "You didn't say yes," he murmured, voice almost lost beneath the rain. "I couldn't," she replied, her breath trembling. "Because of you." A slow, uncertain smile tugged at his lips. He took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders, his fingers brushing her skin. The air between them was charged, quiet, electric. "You don't owe me anything," he said softly, "but if you're running, I'll run with you." Claire looked back at the restaurant glowing behind her, the sound of laughter and shock still echoing in her ears. Then she turned back to him. "I'm not running," she whispered. "I'm choosing." They drove through the city, wine tearing at her hair, the night unfolding like a promise. For the first time, she didn't feel lost, she felt alive. When they stopped by the old bridge, the sky breaking open with thunder, she laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years. Elias watched her, eyes full of warmth and wonder. "So what happens now?" he asked. Claire looked at him through the rain, heart steady. "Now," she said, "I find out who I really am." The next morning, sunlight streamed through the blinds of the small apartment Elias had once called his studio. The room smelled faintly of turpentine and rain, the air still humming with everything unsaid. Claire sat at the edge of the bed, wearing his oversized shirt, her thoughts swirling between fear and freedom. For the first time in years, she hadn't woken up to a plan, no schedule, no rules, no expectations, just possibility. Elias stood by the window, sketching something quietly, the muscles in his arm moving in rhythm with his pencil. "You don't have to stay," he said without looking up. Claire tilted her head, surprised. "You want me to go?" He smiled faintly. "I want you to choose. That's all." The word asterisk, choose, asterisk, echoed in her chest like a pulse. She walked to the canvas, leaning against the wall, a painting she hadn't noticed before. It was of a woman standing at a crossroads, light breaking behind her. It felt too close, too real. "You painted this," she whispered. Elias nodded. "Before I met you. I guess I was waiting for someone to understand it." She touched the brushstrokes, her fingers trembling. "You always knew how to see people," she said softly. "No," he replied. "I just never looked away." Something inside her shifted. For years, she had been the version of herself that others expected, Daniel's future wife, her parents' pride, her friends' example. But here, in this small room filled with unfinished art and messy dreams, she felt like herself again. The rain had washed away her fear, but now the sun revealed everything she had to face. She turned toward Elias. "I don't know what happens next," she admitted. "Good," he said gently. "That means it's real." His eyes held no promises, No expectations, just quiet belief. And that was enough. When Claire stepped outside later that morning, the city looked different. The same streets, the same noise, yet everything glowed with new meaning. She walked without knowing where she was going, only that it was forward. Behind her, the sound of Elias's pencil continued, faintly a reminder that not all stories begin with certainty. Some begin with a single step taken for yourself and no one else. Claire spent the next few days drifting between moments of calm and waves of uncertainty. She rented a small room above a flower shop downtown, where the scent of roses and lavender clung to the air. The city felt new, alive in ways she'd never noticed before. Every morning, she walked aimlessly, sketchbook in hand, capturing faces, windows, fragments of life. Yet at night, when the streets emptied, she couldn't escape the echo of her old life, the messages left unanswered, the questions she'd run away from. One evening, she stood on the bridge where Elias had taken her that first night. The wind brushed against her hair, and for a moment she closed her eyes, imagining Daniel's voice, his confusion, his heartbreak. He didn't deserve the lie, she whispered to the dark water below. But I didn't deserve the cage. A single tear traced her cheek, and she laughed softly at herself, how pain and peace could live in the same breath. When she returned to her tiny room, she found a small envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a simple sketch, herself, standing under the rain, head held high. No signature, but she knew whose hand had drawn it. On the back, 4 words: "Keep choosing your freedom." She pressed the paper to her chest and exhaled. For the first time, she understood that love wasn't about who held her hand, it was about who reminded her she could stand alone. The days turned into weeks, and Claire slowly began rebuilding her life piece by piece. Her sketchbook, once filled with drawings of others, now overflowed with self-portraits, each one a reflection of who she was becoming. She started volunteering at a community art center, teaching children how to paint emotions they couldn't put into words. One afternoon, as she helped a little girl mix colors, she felt something inside her shift again. Peace, not the fragile kind, but the quiet strength that comes from surviving yourself. Yet sometimes, when the laughter faded, she found herself looking out the window, wondering where Elias was. He hadn't called, hadn't written since the drawing, and somehow that felt right. He had entered her life like a storm, torn down the walls, and left her standing in the sunlight. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she was closing the art center when she noticed a familiar shape near the doorway. A man with paint-stained hands and tired eyes. Elias, he smiled softly, holding a small wrapped canvas. "I didn't come to stay," he said, "just to show you this." Claire unwrapped it, breath-catching. It was her painting, laughing, alive, beneath the brushstrokes. One line stood out: "Freedom looks good on you." Tears welled in her eyes. But she didn't speak. She didn't need to. Elias placed a gentle kiss on her forehead and stepped back into the fading light. As he disappeared down the street, Claire realized that sometimes love isn't about staying. It's about leaving someone better than you found them. Weeks passed like whispered chapters, and Claire's life began to bloom in ways she hadn't planned. Her classes at the art center grew popular. People came not just to paint, but to feel something real. One afternoon, a journalist from a local magazine approached her for an interview titled "Women Who Rebuilt Themselves." Claire hesitated, unsure if her story was worth telling. But that night, as she stared at Elias's painting, the one that said, "Freedom looks good on you," she realized that surviving was enough reason to speak. The article went viral within days. Messages flooded in from women she had never met, thanking her for her courage, for choosing herself. And though Daniel's name wasn't mentioned, she received a short message from him. "I read it. I understand now." She stared at those words for a long time before replying. Simply "thank you." For the first time, their story didn't sting, it had settled. like paint drying on a finished canvas. That evening, she stood by her window, city lights glowing below, her reflection blending with the world outside. She smiled faintly, realizing she had said yes after all, not to a man, but to life itself. Months passed, and the rhythm of Claire's life became something beautiful and perfect, unpredictable, and entirely her own. She had moved into a small apartment overlooking the park, where every morning began with sunlight spilling through gauzy curtains and the hum of the city below. Her art had evolved to less about pain now, more about rebirth. One of her newest pieces, titled Asterisk the Choice Asterisk, was selected for a major gallery exhibition. It showed a woman standing between two open doors, one leading into darkness, the other into light, her hand resting on neither. Critics called it haunting and liberating all at once. On opening night, Claire wore a simple white dress, her hair tied loosely, her expression calm but glowing. She wandered through the crowd until she stopped in front of her painting. For a moment, the noise faded. She remembered every version of herself that had led here, the frightened girl who said no, the woman who ran through the rain, the teacher who found meaning in others' healing. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "You did it," she turned. It was Sarah, one of her former students. "You taught me that healing isn't about forgetting," Sarah said, eyes glimmering. "It's about creating something out of the cracks." Claire smiled. That's exactly it. Later that night, when everyone had left, she stood alone in the gallery, her reflection merging with the figure in her painting. And in that silent moment, she realized she was no longer searching for love, she had already become it. Claire's success continued to ripple outward in ways she hadn't expected. Invitations poured in from other cities' art panels, interviews, collaborations. But amid the growing attention, she felt a quiet pull toward simplicity. One evening, she returned to the bridge where everything had begun. The city was bathed in gold, the same soft light as that night when she'd chosen herself. A gentle breeze brushed against her hair, carrying faint music from a street performer nearby. She smiled, realizing how much had changed, not in the world, but within her. Then, a voice came from behind. "I thought I might find you here." Claire turned and saw Daniel. He looked different, calmer, older somehow. They stood for a long moment in silence before he spoke again. "I used to be angry," he admitted, "but now, I think you did what I never had the courage to do." Claire's eyes softened. "What's that?" "Start over," he said. She nodded, tears glinting. "We both did," she whispered. They didn't hug, didn't linger. They simply stood together, two people who had once loved, now at peace with the memory. As Daniel walked away, Claire turned back to the river. The lights reflected on the water like scattered stars, and she realized that closure didn't come from answers, it came from acceptance. For the first time, she wasn't looking back anymore. Her future, undefined and open, felt exactly right. The seasons began to change, and with them, so did Claire. The chill of early autumn carried a quiet kind of peace, the kind she once thought only other people could feel. Her art center had grown beyond anything she imagined. Walls once bare were now covered in color and story. One afternoon, she received an invitation to a national art conference. She'd been nominated for an award recognizing transformation through expression. She smiled at the irony. The woman who once couldn't say yes to a man was now being honored for saying yes to herself. On the day of the ceremony, she stood backstage, adjusting her simple black dress, feeling the familiar flutter of nerves. Through the curtain, she saw a sea of faces, lights glimmering like stars. When they called her name, she walked forward, not as someone proving her worth, but as someone who had already found it. "Art," she said when handed the microphone, "saved me from silence. It taught me that even broken voices can paint something beautiful." The room fell still, her words hanging in the air. Afterward, she stepped outside into the cool night, clutching her award lightly. The city hummed softly around her. She tilted her head to the sky and whispered, "I said yes to life, to love, to me." The wind carried her words away, scattering them into the stars. The night was quiet. The city hushed beneath a blanket of soft rain. Claire stood on her balcony, her award resting beside a cup of steaming tea, her hair tousled by the breeze. Down below, the streetlights flickered like gentle reminders of how far she had come. She thought of every version of herself, the girl who once said no, the woman who chose freedom, the artist who found purpose in pain. Each one had led her here. Her phone buzzed a message from the Art Council. They wanted her to lead an international program to teach art as healing. She laughed softly, tears brimming. The world had once felt so small, and now it was opening wider than she'd ever dared to dream. Later that night, she picked up a blank canvas. No sketches, no plan, just pure instinct. With slow, deliberate strokes, she began to paint not what she saw, but what she felt. Light spilling through cracks, colors blending where they once clashed. Hours passed, and when she stepped back, she smiled. It was her story, unwritten, imperfect, alive. As dawn broke over the city, Claire whispered to herself, "I said yes." And it changed everything. The first rays of sunlight caught the wet paint, turning it to gold. And for the first time in her life, she didn't just feel free, she was asterisk. If Claire's story touched your heart, don't forget to hit the like button. It truly helps more people discover stories like this. Comment below what saying yes to yourself means to you. And share this video with someone who needs a reminder that freedom is never too late to find. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on the bell. New stories like this one are coming every week, each one made to move your heart and inspire your soul.